It's the weekly cover price top 10 list. Forget Steve Lombard. It's all about Lady Deadpool. Coming up next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hello, panelologists. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. And before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe, do all that great stuff. Check out the description of this video. I have a link to my eBay store, my email, my Instagram's on there, my whatnot. We do whatnot sales Monday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern time. So Covrprice is an independent pricing tool that collects data for both graded as well as raw books, which is kind of unique. I don't get anything out of Covrprice, but they do lists all the time. And one of the lists they do every week, they have a top 10, which is actually a top 20. We'll talk about 11 through 20 as well, but we're going to focus on the top 10 of the books that are most sold over the past week. And it signifies the trends in the market, what's hot and what has just made news and what people are speculating on. And it's usually a combination of old books and new books, which is the case here. So let's take a look at the Covrprice top 10 list for the week of ending June 16th, 2024. And coming in at number 10 is X-Force number 2, the second appearance of Deadpool. This is a plentiful book. Of course, Deadpool's first appearance in New Mutants 98 is very hard to find. Not very hard to find, but it's very expensive. This book was printed in droves, and it's about a $10 raw book, only about $75 in and 9.8. And if we look at the 9.8 over time, it never really got that high because just there's so many of them. A height of $160, and it came back down and has kind of leveled off in the $70 to $75 range. Many fans can't justify the cost of acquiring the first appearance of Deadpool, with many opting to pivot to this book, his second appearance. It's also the first appearance of Weapon X, Garrison Kane. But come on, folks are here for Deadpool. Whenever his first appearance gets aggressively hot, this book isn't far behind. It's the perfect key for many to acquire as it scratches the itch without breaking the bank. Again, you can probably get it for $10. You can probably find this at garage sales or flea markets because there are a lot of them. I don't even want to guess how many copies of this book I've had or still have because it is a book I pick up. I find it for a buck or two. Yes. Is it a book that I'm going to submit for a 9.8? No, because what is it? $75 now? It doesn't really make sense. For me. Let's go to number 9. X-Men number 4, the first appearance of Omega Red. This is a book from 1992. It is about a $20, upwards of $35 book in last sale, and is about $120 in a CGC 9.8. Let's take a look at that. Now, this was a book that had the perfect combination of factors going, but here, this is the interesting thing. Pre-pandemic, it's like $130, $145 book. And then it jumps up in March of 2021 all the way to $331, $350. Okay. Because for some reason, folks started speculating that we were going to see him in WandaVision, or maybe because they mentioned Madripoor, he was going to be in Falcon Winter Soldier. And in hindsight, especially, it doesn't make any sense to think that the first mutant they would introduce of all possible mutants is Omega Red. He has gotten a boost from the X-Men 97 series, but we can see this book has been trending down all the while. And I mean, look, $135, let's say pre-pandemic, and it's now down to like $110, $120. So it is underneath its pre-pandemic pricing. Has been on the list on and off for years. Recently, it's due to the tease set up for season 2 of X-Men 97. That and the rumor that we may see him in Deadpool and Wolverine. He appeared in a cutscene from Deadpool 2 as a friendly prisoner with Deadpool. I don't know what the word friendly means in quotation marks, but that might be R-rated. He's a villain with a shared past between Deadpool and Wolverine. He's got adamantium galore to boot. It just makes so much sense for collectors to take a second look at it, and the second look they are taking. Now, why has this book dipped below pre-pandemic prices? I think there's one reason for that, and it is the CGC census. And this is also an interesting book in that regard. Is there 12,381 universal copies on the census, 4,907 of them in 9.8s, about 40%. There is a single solitary 9.9. And that 9.9 first popped in November of 2022, I believe. Hasn't been joined since. There's still only one. Now, will somebody submit? I mean, I don't think it's sold in the 9.9. But let's take a look at this book, Across Grades, which I think is kind of interesting. Again, for me, this is not a book I would want to submit if I didn't think it was going to get a 9.8. Probably, it is a book I have and will put in pre-screens, because if we look at the value of the book, other than a 9.8, I mean, so there were 5,410 public sales. We're going down from 120-ish to 65, right? And then, you know, as you get, there are people who've slammed it in 9s and 8.5s. It's barely worth case cost. So, and there's the 9.9 has not sold. What would that sell for? $2,000, $2,500, maybe 20x. I don't know. It's a one of one for now. So let's take a look at number 8 on the list. Remote Space number 1. This book came out last week. It is a 1 in 10 Ryan Ottley variant, and it's selling for about $20. The cover A, what do we got? That's a cover price for Remote Space. I don't know anything about this. I don't believe I got this book. So let's take a look at what cover price has to say about it. Another under-the-radar title, more limited variant offerings. While image titles often fly under the radar, they knocked it out of the park by attaching heavy hitters to their variants. For this book, the incredible Ryan Ottley pulled out the stops and gave us a cover that rivals some of his best. It's an attention grabber. It's the aftermarket is any indication. It's getting more eyes on the title. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know, brand new books, long-term popularity of the books is a question, and that's a question I have with this book. And I've said it before on these lists is if it's a brand new book, be a little wary, and especially when the first books start to pop, the first graded books start to pop, because you're going to deal with a fairly small supply and a larger demand, and then as more books get submitted, the supply is going to increase and the demand will probably wane a little bit. Let's go to number 7. Ain't No Grave, number 2, Scotty Young cover. This is by Image, a 1 in 25 that came out last week, and the Mirror Mint going for $77. The cover A, $4. A quiet title with a not so quiet variant. The only one available for this book. Numerous fan bases are clashing on the aftermarket to add it to their PC. On one side, it is a Scotty Young fan base, a ride or die community that loves his work. On the other hand, fans of a fledgling title that has something to say. In the middle are those that just want a sick book. It's the busy aftermarket is for this so far. It's an issue number 2, which is kind of interesting. I think this was mostly driven by the Scotty Young factor, and the fact that, you know, it's a Scotty Young that's a little darker material, which is kind of an interesting juxtaposition. Number 6, New Mutants 98, first appearance of Deadpool. Hot book, near mint books. You're gonna have to spend about $400. 9/8, about $1,200. And we always like to try. I didn't update this since last time. Let's say $43.98, 1 in 12. If this isn't updated, 112 for it's this, yeah, I guess maybe I did update it. But 25 universal copies on the census, 4,398, 17.5% in a 9.8. And if we look at this book over time, you know, boom, 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 jumps up during the beginning of 2021 from $1,000 all the way up to $2,300. And it's been on the downslide ever since, going back down to about $1,300, which is more than it was pre-pandemic. So this book, I would not be buying this book. And again, this is just my opinion. Do your own research. Don't say Bronzeville told me to do that. We're leading up to the movie. Generally speaking, books get hotter, and then when the movie kind of comes and goes from the public consciousness, people move on to something else and the prices drop. And I think this still has a little bit of a ways to drop to get back to the trend line from pre-boom prices. Let's go to number 5. This is interesting. Deadpool, Merc with a Mouth, number 7. The first appearance of Lady Deadpool and also Zombie Deadpool's head and Major Deadpool and the Deadpool Kid. This is an expensive book. I mean, the second and third prints are crazy too. You're gonna have to spend over $100 for a high grade copy, likely, and the 9.8 is like $350 to $400. And if we look at this book over time, right, it did during the boom, jumped up to 700, and it's been kind of holding. I mean, this is a book that in July of 2020 sold for $120 at a 9.8. There are only 891 Universal Blue labels on the census and 424 9.8s. I think I have a 9.4, which is still a good book, and I have another one that's going out that's probably not a 9.8, probably 9.94, 9.6. I just twice have come across once at a flea market and once in a collection. So it is a pretty good book to pick up. Oh, that's right. So why is this on the list? We saw legs in the most recent teaser trailer for Deadpool and Wolverine. And people trying to match up the legs. Do they match up with Taylor Swift's legs? Are they more like Blake Lively's legs? They're definitely, probably female legs in the Deadpool outfit. The great brief glimpse was all it took to bring Lady Deadpool into the speculation conversation. This book already was doing well, and people, there has been speculation that either Taylor Swift or Blake Lively would play the character, because we are getting Dogpool. Naturally, fans moved to acquire first appearance before it could hit the stratosphere. However, typically sells for more than the Lady Deadpool ongoing title, with some being turned away by the barrier of entry. Neither is a heavily distributed book, which limits availability and raises prices usually, but some just have to have that first appearance in their personal collection, especially if there's more to Lady Deadpool appearance than a pair of legs. Let's go on to number 4. And it's the Adi Granov Doom variant cover. I really like it. Very photorealistic cover. Love the eyes he did there. A book that is like $15-ish in high grade and close to $100 in the 9.8. And the 9.8 still just coming out. This book has been like a darling. It's a one-shot that just came out recently. We are first starting to see 9.8s come to market. While cover A is flying high and selling for nearly double on the aftermarket for ungraded copies, the object many fans are working to attain is this variant. Cold, dark, and brooding sums up the personality of old Dr. Doom, and this Adi Granov variant has it in spades. While many collectors opt to chase that regular cover for different reasons, this version has quickly become the iconic cover fans are associating with the title. So, yeah, Doom is still dooming. And this is a cover A, $180. This particular Granov cover, only 2 tracked sales. And if we look at that, $99 and $100 and $110. So it's about a $100 book in a 9.8. But that's true. There's 60 on the census, 56 of them are 9.8s. Expect those numbers to grow. And there's the signature. Let's go to number 3 on the list. Falling in Love on the Path to Hell, the Ryan Gonzalez 1 in 10 variant. This book just came out earlier in the month. High grade copies for $30. This book quietly went from that title the collectors opted to take a flyer on, which left many collectors sore because they potentially missed out. Now that the praise for the series is reaching the masses thanks to its interesting story and incredible art, the aftermarket is getting busy. This 1 in 10 ratio from Ryan Gonzalez has been getting much attention thanks to a limited variant selection and the stylized cover that catches the eye. So I don't know much about this, but this is, I think, the second time it's appeared on the list just in the last few weeks that it's been out. So if you find one, or even the cover A, I don't know the cover A, a little above cover price, I guess. ECC Ashcan that went for a Klaus Janson 1 in 20. So there are Mike Mayhew from his web store. Let's go to number 2, and this is an oldie, Dark Horse Comics. Predator number 1 from 1989, the first appearance of Predator in comics. Of course, he was in the movies previously. The price is kind of all over the place, and there is a second print of this you have to be careful of because it looks an awful lot like the first print. I'm not sure off the top of my head how one distinguishes them. I don't think there's anything on the front cover that jumps out like a Roman numeral 2 or anything. But at any rate, this book in a 9.8, we can see here, it was always like in the a fairly expensive book, like pre-boom, $250, $300, and jumped up to $950, and then came down pretty quickly, and it's kind of stabilized in this kind of $450-ish range, is what I would say for this book. Per Deadline, Elle Fanning is set to appear in the next Predator film titled Badlands. It's reportedly a self-contained story, and that's about the extent that the community knows. Still, that didn't stop collectors from snagging the first appearance of the Predator in comics. Of course, the announcement came hot on the heels of a new Alien trailer. Fans of both franchises are set to eat well. What I would say is I thought the, what was the name of the one that was set in pre-Columbian North America? The Predator film that in which the young Native American girl, Prey, was just the title of the film. That was excellent. And it kind of opens the possibility of having predators land on Earth at any time in history, and kind of telling kind of like a historical story with a predator in it. So we know Badlands. Does that mean it'll take place like in the on the in the 1800s, in like the Dakotas or something? I don't know. A lot of ways that could go, but that is interesting to see. Again, this is a book that is a good key. Be careful. Make sure you know the difference between the first print and the second print. I'm not sure. Predator #1, first versus second print. Same as the first on the cover. You have to look at the indicia on the inside. So the covers are exactly the same. If you're going to buy a Predator #1, make sure if you're at a show, ask the vendor to open it up so that you can look at the indicia and see if it is a second print or not, because you don't want to pay first print money for the second print. And that's going to bring us to numero uno, the top dog on the list, Lady Deadpool #1, a one-shot from 2010 that high-grade copies are selling for about $30, and the 9/8s are exploding up, to $275 here. Again, I think this is potentially a temporary bubble on this book, because even if we see Lady Deadpool in the movie, are we going to see her continuing at some point in the MCU? I'm going to say no. Right? I also am very skeptical about the Blonde Phantom spec, but that's an entirely different story. Let's take a look at this book historically. Right? There are only 138 on the census, so that's one thing to be careful of. 73, or more than half of them, are 9/8s. But this was a book, right? It's always hovering around $100, let's say. I mean, we did a $27 sale in 2019, $50. And it didn't really jump out of over $100, really, during the boom and all. And it was right here. Boom. $200 in July of 2023, when there was some Lady Deadpool speculation, back down to 100, then boom, up to $213, a $275 sale now. I did have a copy of this book that was not a 9/8 contender. I sold it raw probably within the last year. If you have a 9/8 of this book, my advice, and don't take my advice, do your own research, but what I would do, I would sell that now. I mean, it could go a little bit higher, but how much higher will it go even if we see Taylor Swift portraying her in the movie? It's kind of a gamble. Yeah, maybe it'll go up to $400, because there aren't many of them, but I think they're going to be more as people are submitting them. So, yeah. 2 seconds. That's all it took to bring Lady Deadpool to full attention across the hobby. We didn't even get a full shot, but a pair of legs, more than likely belong to a feminine anatomy. That sent fans scrambling to the aftermarket as Lady Deadpool-centric books had snapped up like hotcakes. The caveat, however, we don't know which variant of Lady Deadpool we're getting. Many collectors opted to take a safer approach and pick up a early title featuring the character front and center. So take it for what it's worth. Let's take a look at 11 through 20 real quick. 11, this classic Wolverine cover. That's a book that I try to get in a 9/8 if I see a potential copy. Same thing, Spawn #1. I probably wouldn't get it graded unless it's going to come back a 9/8. I'm talking about a newsstand. Ooh, a book that actually made the list. This book maybe up a little bit, but down a lot from the boom. This was a book that was, I think, touched $4,000 at one point, and now it's under 1,000 in a 9.8. Ultimate Fallout 4, an established modern key. Authority #1. It's going for about $250 in a 9.8. And the engineer is going to be in the Superman film. The Authority, its time is coming. ASM 300, a copper, I guess late copper key. I wouldn't call it modern because McFarlane was obviously still working at Marvel. But a key. This is a book that is desirable to so many collectors. Same thing with Secret Wars 8, the Origin of the Black Costume. We talked about Doom. The Maria Wolf 1 in 25 variant is also hot because it pays tribute to the rapper MF Doom, which I was completely unaware of because that is not an interest of mine. And then Wolverine #1, the ongoing series, again, $300 and 9.8. And I just got this. But look, at 9.8, $75 for the regular cover of Spider-Man #1. So that's going to do it for our video today, the Cover Price Top 10 list. I think it's always interesting to take a look at the hot books in the market, what people are looking at and grabbing. I think generally, this is a list you want to stay away from if you're looking to buy, but think about if you're looking to sell. That's usually a good model. But again, don't take my advice for what it's worth. Do your own research. And in doing your own research, you can take some time out to take a look at a couple of my other videos here. And this is Jim saying...